everybody. Good morning. Welcome to our morning meeting with ambassadors. Today we're meeting Perry, our peregrine falcon, who's very excited to meet you guys today. Perry will probably flap his wings throughout the program. He really loves just flapping and working himself up. So just excuse if he jumps or does anything like that. It's part of his normal behavior. Perry is our peregrine falcon ambassador. It came to us in 2013 from Vermont. We'll take a little bit before we get into his story just to let everyone come in. But he is our peregrine falcon ambassador. So if you're just wondering right off the bat what species he is, he's our peregrine. If you would like to say hi, hello, let us know your name, where you're from, any questions that you have, please do so in the comments down below. There's also a donate button as always, and we greatly appreciate any support that you can give us. We are making sure that we stay in touch with you guys throughout this weird time. Usually we'd be out in schools and libraries really trying to connect our community with wildlife, and we're trying to keep that up while this is all going on. So any donations to support our work, to support the care of the ambassadors and our patients are greatly appreciated. We are still open for animal admissions. We're still receiving animal calls every day. We're still receiving admissions every day. So you know, wildlife still goes on. These guys are doing a great job, I know, of dealing with the changes. So thank you guys so much for donating. Perry is, like I said, our peregrine falcon ambassador. He came to us in 2013 from Vermont. He was originally brought to another rehabilitation center out there after he was in an accident involving a power line. So he flew into a power line and was pretty badly electrocuted. I'm not sure how well you can really see, but because he's flapping his wings so much. I know. Can you sit still for just a second? Thank you. But this wing over here looks a little ratty. That is his damaged wing, so he does tend to knock that on things more often. This foot over here as well does tend to get a little uncoordinated. Perry, you're fine. You're okay. So it does sometimes get tangled up in things. And then that eye as well sometimes has some issues. So that whole side of his body, his left side of his body, is pretty badly electrocuted and has some damage associated with it. So he lives with us at the center now because he's unable to fly, unable to coordinate his movements very well. Basically, the nerves don't respond to his muscles properly. His brain doesn't seem to be talking to his muscles on that side anymore. Perry, can you calm down? Thank you. Perry is about, he's probably about 6 or 7 years old at this point. He was a juvenile when he came into us, and we know this based on his coloration, his size, so we know he was a pretty young, probably a first-year bird when we got him. And now he's somewhere around 6 or 7. And these guys in the wild could live into their teens and then in captivity into their 20s. So we're lucky to have him, and he'll be with us for a long time. Perry is a pretty small falcon. If you've ever seen peregrines before, you may have noticed that they're a bit larger. You may have seen bigger ones. He is a male, so he is a little bit smaller than the female. Actually drastically smaller than the female peregrine. If any of you remember Freya, our female peregrine falcon that we lost last year, she was about twice the size of Perry.
Gavin, age 5.
Good morning, Gavin.
Loves peregrine falcons.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, they're amazing animals. Peregrine falcons are officially the fastest animals on the planet. They're amazing.
He would like to know what Perry eats at the center, and is it the same as other birds in the wild?
That's a great question. So we do try to mimic the diets that they would receive in the wild, so the animals that they would be hunting in the wild. These guys are actually bird eaters, so they do prefer to eat things like songbirds or pigeons, sometimes some gulls, some seabirds. So we try to mimic that as much as we can in captivity. We never feed them any patience or anything, but we do buy quail. They're a little farmed bird that you can buy to feed peregrines specifically. And then we also do feed them chicks sometimes. We also supplement their diets with mice. So the base of all of our raptor diets is actually mice. They're the easiest form of protein for us to come by. We actually have them donated to us from Jackson Laboratories in Bar Harbor, so we're really lucky. What are you doing? And that saves us about like $26,000 a year. It's amazing, that donation. So they do get mammals in captivity, and they would eat some in the wild. It's just birds would make up a very large proportion of their diet. So we do supplement with birds, and it's actually good for them to have that in their diet. It helps to maintain all of the right vitamins and minerals in their diet. Hi, buddy. You're so excitable. I know. So in captivity, that's what they get, and then in the wild, they would eat a lot of birds. That's a great question. Thank you. So definitely say hi if you're joining us. Let us know your name and where you're from. We can say hello. So Perry came to us from the Vermont Institute of Natural Sciences. He was originally brought there, rehabilitated there initially, like the triage was done there, and they got him stable, and then he was transferred to us. That we were able to determine pretty quickly that he wasn't releasable, so we knew when he came to us that he was going to be an ambassador. And originally we did try him out as a mate for Freya, as a partner for her, because normally our raptors do like to live in pairs. They would mate for life in the wild, and they would normally spend most of the year together in a mated pair. So we did think that Freya might appreciate a roommate, but it ended up not working out because Freya was actually imprinted on people, at least partially. She really thought people were her compatriots. She really loved hanging out with people. She would sit in our office every day, many of you might remember. And Perry was raised in the wild for the first year of his life, so he's pretty certain he's a falcon. Doesn't have any confusion about that. And the two of them didn't really seem to get along. Freya was also much larger than him, was a little bit feisty, and we were a little bit worried about her hurting him. So they did live separately for most of Freya's life and then all of Perry's life. But they seem to be okay. We give them lots of socialization. Perry really enjoys sitting right out in front of his enclosure and watching everybody go by. He can see the front door to the center from his enclosure, so he always knows when food is coming. He gets really excited. He'll do this flapping when he sees food coming, so it's very sweet.
Gavin would also like to know if falcons eat live prey or if we feed them frozen prey here.
So we always give them frozen and thawed food here. They're all disabled in one way or another, so they really probably couldn't kill the animals that we give them. They also, it wouldn't be too nice for that animal, right? And, you know, in the wild they would be eating live things, but they would have to kill that first, and it requires a lot of coordination on the part of the predator to do that. So the peregrine falcon is actually really great at this hunting ability. They are, like I mentioned before, the fastest animals on the planet. They can actually jump off the top of a cliff and dive down towards the ground at about like 300 miles an hour in a nosedive towards the ground. It's really, really fast. Their bodies are shaped like a bullet to help them cut through the air really quickly. You'll actually see some cool photos if you do some Google searching about the similarities between falcon body shapes and the B-52 bomber shape. They look exactly alike because they're both very well adapted to cut through the air, to go super fast, to cut down on any sort of drag that would slow them down. So they jump off the top of a cliff and then dive down towards the ground in a nosedive. They will locate the prey that they're going for. They have amazing eyesight, and they can see things that are moving very, very quickly because they're moving very quickly. So they'll dive down towards the ground, and they will, when they come up to their prey, they'll actually pull back their wings, and their joints to their shoulders are so strong that pulling their wings back out of a 300-mile-per-hour stoop doesn't just rip them right off. They would normally, in any other bird, that would be enough force to really do a lot of damage to that shoulder joint, but they have incredibly strong joints there. So they pull back their wings to stop themselves. They make a little fist with their talons. Oh, there we go.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Sorry about that, guys. So as I was saying, the peregrine falcons will will make a little fist out of their talons, and when they come up upon their prey, they will actually punch that food, that bird or whatever they're eating. And because they were traveling so fast and hitting that animal at such a high speed, the impact is usually enough to just knock that animal unconscious, and then they can fly off with it. So they'll make a little fist with their talons and fly off with unconscious or even dead prey, and then they'll eat that once they get back to a safe place, a landing place. So even in the wild, they're not necessarily eating things that are wriggling around. They're not eating things that are trying to escape. They will knock them out so that they don't have to worry about that. And that's actually why our raptors usually have these big, strong, beefy talons, is to hold on to like live prey. Perry Pants, hello. Is to hold on to live prey that is wriggling, trying to get away. So like our red-tailed hawks and our owls have these really large, strong talons that are meant to have incredible grip strength. Some owls have grips that are about 10 times stronger than our hands, so they are very, very powerful. Peregrines actually don't really have as strong, still very strong, but not as strong as our owls or hawks. They have these long, spindly toes, and they're, nice job, I know. And their talons are actually pretty weak comparatively, because they would curl them up into a fist and punch things instead of grab onto something and hold it while it's wriggling. So pretty different adaptation, but still a raptor, still really great at using those to grab onto their food and hunt. Hello, do we have any questions so far?
Parker and Clara,
Hello, good morning.
they would like to know where falcons would live in the wild.
That's a great question. So falcons are found pretty much wherever there are mountains. Peregrine falcons anyway. There are many different species of falcons in the world. Peregrine falcons like to live in a mountainous region or on a cliff. So if you have been up and down the seacoast area, you might see our peregrine falcons living on the cliffs in like Rye, for example. They also love like Acadia National Park. There are some cliffs up there that they are famous for living in. They do like any sort of mountains, so there are lots of peregrines up in the White Mountains, and he is from the Green Mountains in Vermont. And then in this day and age, peregrines have actually adapted incredibly well to city living. So in the wild, they would normally be living up at the top of a cliff. They aren't, living in any place that's really that forested. They're going to be living in some place with a lot of rocks and cliff faces. And then in our cities, we actually have something that mimics that really well. So they would love to live up at the top of a skyscraper. So there are peregrine falcons that, for example, live on the Empire State Building, which is really funny. What are you doing? They also are famous for living underneath bridges. So they'll live underneath a bridge and then come out and hunt along the water that bridge is crossing over. There's a peregrine falcon pair that nests on the bridge that goes over into New Hampshire, the 95 bridge, every year. So they really like any place like that. They don't really see the difference between that and a mountain. A skyscraper is kind of like a man-made mountain. So we have a lot of peregrines now living in our cities. There's some in Portsmouth, Manchester, New York City, Portland. So we have a lot of peregrines now adapting to city living, and there are plenty of birds for them to eat in those cities. They love pigeons or some of the smaller finches in those cities, and they'll also eat all of the gulls that live on the water there. So they do a great job.
Ollie and Owen from
Hello,
Lebanon,
Ollie and
Maine.
Owen. Hi, everybody. Hello, good morning. Let us know that you're here. Thanks so much. Hi, Perry. Good boy. So you guys are probably noticing as Perry's flapping his wings how pointed they are. This is something that our falcons are known to have, is really, really pointy wings. And that has to do with their speed. So this pointed shape to the wing is really great for cutting through the air. It's a lot different than the shape of a wing of a red-tailed hawk or a vulture, or something that would be gliding, soaring through the air like a kite. It's a lot different. They are going to have very wide, broad, finger-like wings that will catch the air really well. And these guys have very pointy wings to help them. You're fine. very pointed wings to help them to go super, super fast and cut through the air. They're also not very fluffy, so if you'll notice, all of the feathers on Perry lay very, very flat against his body. They are all very smooth, and that's to reduce drag as well. They are very good groomers. They will make sure that those feathers lay very, very flat against their body so that they can go as fast as possible. They do have some really great camouflage. Like I mentioned, they do live on a mountain or a cliff, so they are going to try to blend in with rocks and generally gray things. So they have this beautiful slate blue gray on their backs, and then on their fronts they have a more cream with some mottling on it. And that is all really great to blend in with rocky crevices, things like that. Something else that all of our falcons have, and a lot of our birds have when they're very young, are these stripes under their eyes. So you can see the stripes under Perry's eyes there. Those are called malar stripes. And if you've seen a football player with stripes under his eyes, that's actually serving the same purpose as these stripes under Perry's eyes. They are for reducing the amount of glare that Perry might get from the sun. So all of our young peregrines are born with these stripes under their eyes, and as they get older, the dark feathers along their cheeks, you can see here on Perry, will actually come and connect with the dark feathers under his eyes. So as he gets older, that fills more and more in. Even in the time that I've known Perry, even in the time that I've been working with Perry, it started to get darker in that area. He's started to fill in. So when we first started working together, Perry was probably around 2 or 3 years old. Very narrow stripes on his cheeks, and those have started filling in more. And that's how you can tell that they're a very mature or adult peregrine, is if they have fully black cheeks. They will, that's how you can tell. Hi everybody, do we have new visitors?
Joanne from
Hi,
Northern
Joanne.
Vermont says
Hello.
thanks for the presentation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Perry's so excited.
Maria would like to let Perry know that he's gorgeous.
Oh, you are so pretty. Yeah, they do have this very pretty, striking blue-gray color. And he is very, very, good at showing it off. Perry is one of our more high-strung ambassadors here at the center. So I know in a lot of these Facebook Lives, if you've been watching them with us, the bird will sit very calmly and just kind of hang out. Falcons are a little bit more high-strung. Perry has been working with us for a long, long time, so he is fine. He is a little amped up because he is enjoying, being out and about on a walk, but he isn't stressed or anything like that. This isn't bad for him. This is actually really good enrichment for Perry. Yeah. In fact, when Perry and I started working together, he was even more high-strung than this and didn't do very well in the glove. We took about 6 months of working together, getting to know each other. We would come out to a picnic table like this one. We would he would eat his lunch with me every single day, so he would start to learn to associate me with food. And that has worked really, really well. So now Perry does very well on the glove. He eats on the glove really well. That is a sign that he's really relaxed and calm. That's called a rouse, and we love to see that in our animals. That means that they're generally calming down. He just really likes being out and about and having all the stimulation, so he wants to go explore. And they're falcons. They're very high energy birds. Yeah, I know. If any of you guys have ever met Maeve, our Merlin falcon, she is very similar. I think she's up on deck for tomorrow's Facebook Live, so you'll get to see her tomorrow. They have very similar body shapes, very similar adaptations, and she is also very, very chatty as well. So luckily Perry doesn't scream like she does, but still very, very high energy birds. That's just what the flapping's about.
We have a viewer all the way from Norway.
Oh my goodness, hello, we've gone international. That's been one of the really cool things about these Facebook Lives and about interacting with you guys online, is seeing where you guys are from. We get viewers from all over the country, but thank you so much for tuning in from Norway.
She's blind, and she really appreciates the verbal description of Perry.
Thank you. I'm so glad to hear it. Yes, Perry is about a foot tall and has beautiful blue-gray coloring and a very, very pointed beak. He actually has little tiny ridges on his beak that will help him chew his food even better. I don't know if you guys can see that. So, yep, Perfect. He also has a little schmutz on his face. He has a little bit of schmutz because he was eating his breakfast right before this. So if you see any of those red dots, he was eating a quail right before we tuned in. So we had to interrupt his breakfast. He wasn't too happy about that. I know. So, we try to clean it up as much as possible. But he does have a very sharp hooked beak. That's great for ripping up prey. And then if you'll see, he has two little dots above his beak. And those are his nostrils. On birds, we call their nostrils nares. And his nares are actually very, very special. Most birds don't have nares like him. Inside each nare is a tiny little yellow dot. And that's actually a tiny little bone. It's called a baffle. And it has a very, very important purpose. So we were talking about how peregrines can go super fast. They dive down towards the ground in a nosedive. And when they're doing that, you can imagine the wind rushing up towards their face would go right up into their nose, right up into their sinuses if they didn't have something to stop it. So if you imagine jumping into a pool, you're going to plug your nose so you don't get water rushing up your nose. These baffles actually serve the same purpose as a nose plug. So what happens is when the wind is rushing past his nares, it will get cut up by that little bone in there, by that baffle, and it won't get sucked up into his sinuses. That would really, really hurt him. And you'll notice actually on our jet engines, they have the same sort of shape to them. That cone inside of an engine on a jet plane has the same function. It's so that when they're flying super fast through the air, the wind doesn't rush up into the engine and cause a big blowout, a big explosion. So they've actually borrowed that from the peregrine falcon's nares to help solve a problem in humanity. We call that biomimicry when we do that, when we borrow a technological feature from nature.
Jen would like to know how old Perry is.
Perry is probably somewhere around 7 or 8 years old. He came to us in 2013 and was about probably a year at that time. So probably somewhere around 7 or 8 years old.
And what is the average lifespan for a falcon?
That's a great question. So normally our peregrine falcons in the wild have a very high, what we call infant mortality rate. So if they make it past that first year or two, they're much more likely to live a longer lifespan. So once they get past that mark, they can usually live to be somewhere around maybe 14, 15 years old in the wild. And then in captivity, they've been known to get up to 20 into their 20s. So we hope to have Perry for a long, long time. We are very lucky. We had Freya with us, our female peregrine falcon. She lived to be about 14, 15 years old with us, which is great. So they can live about into their teens when they're in the wild, and then up as far up as maybe 20 years old in captivity. So very lucky. And there are other species of falcons around here. We have, if you go very, very far north, we have what are called gear falcons. They're very large falcons, and sometimes you'll see falconers working with gear falcon, peregrine hybrids, but gear falcons are very, very large. And then we also in our area have two smaller species of falcons called merlins. So you'll meet Maeve, our merlin, tomorrow. And then kestrels as well. Kestrels are really, really small. They're known for hunting things like insects. If you've ever seen one perched up on a power line over a field, or hovering around eating grasshoppers, things like that. So they're about maybe like half the size of Perry. Yes, 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 yes. You're so excited. I know. You're such a good boy.
Stephanie says good morning from Sanford.
Good morning, Stephanie. Hello. Hi. Good boy.
And Mary Atwood donated to us.
Thank you so much, Mary. You're so sweet. You're so sweet. We really appreciate all of the donations that we've been getting on our Facebook Lives, also on our emergency fund. If you go to our webpage, which is just thecenterforwildlife.org, we've been raising funds for an emergency fund to get us through this difficult time, and that's been really amazing, the response that we've gotten to that. So thank you so much to everybody who's donated. We really appreciate it. We have another opportunity for you guys to to donate but also get something back for it. We have this special we've been having for the last week. As many of you know, we would have had a big event on Sunday, last Sunday, our Make Way for Ducklings event, which usually we have every spring to celebrate spring wildlife, to educate about what to do with babies if you find them, what to do with spring wildlife behaviors that you see. And normally we would have some baskets available at that event, and so we had all these things collected for those baskets, and we still wanted to make sure you guys had the opportunity to win those. So what we've decided to do instead is, the last week we've been running an online auction of our baskets, and it's been really well received, but today is the last day to bid on an auction basket. So if Nicole, if you want to pan over here, we have our beautiful, this is what I'm calling our Night Owls basket. It's more of an adult basket. A lot of our baskets that we have on there are suited very well for families with children looking to do activities, looking to keep ourselves entertained. This is for adults and children too, but there's a lot of things about, self-care, pampering yourself, keeping your mind and body engaged and inspired. So we have some guide. We have a lot of different spa products in here. We have hot chocolate, popcorn, tea, all sorts of great things to keep us, sane through this time. So we're calling this our Night Owls basket, and it is set up. If you want to look into the basket a little bit, perfect. It is set up in a little bit nicer of a display in a picture on our website, and we will be posting those pictures. They're all in an album there, so go on there, post your bid, and we'll be sending these out as soon as tomorrow to see who our winners are. And again, there's a better picture of it set up online. But thank you guys so much for joining us today, for joining Perry and I, and for bidding on our auction baskets. We really appreciate it. And we will check in with you tomorrow with another one of our amazing ambassadors. So definitely join us at 10 a.m. tomorrow for our next morning meeting. Thank you so much for all of your support and for loving us and the work that we do, and for following us on Facebook. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.